Welcome to Forging Resilience, exploring for a different perspective on strength and leadership. Join me as we discuss experiences and stories with guests to help gain fresh insights around challenge, success, and leadership. Today on Forging Resilience, I'm joined by Joe Bates, who's a former Royal Marine, UK Special Forces. He's transitioned into finance and the corporate life before in going into branding, but having, that's bollocks, getting tongue-tied. But yeah, transitioned to finance, corporate life, including a branding company before launching his health and wellness company, Hayland.
Massive douchebag. Which
basically, they ride horses naked.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
We're recording.
Sorry.
Joe, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Good to be on. Good to see you. We haven't caught up in a long time, so this is going to be lovely.
It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a while. It's quite a few times we've tried to arrange this, but obviously the stars have aligned today, mate. So it's great to have you here. Joe, give us a bit of your background, mate, and we'll dive in from there.
God. Okay, here we go. Let's go. Let's do this. I always kind of laugh, because the fields that we're in, and I do quite a bit of public speaking and other pods and things like that. So you tell your story a lot, don't you? I know you've obviously told your story a lot, and sometimes it can be easy just to go on autoplay. So I'm not going to go on autoplay. I'm just going to try and just not tell it in a different way, but just organically and authentically tell you it without the little person in my head going, play. Oh, here we go again. When I was 16. So here we go. Not on autoplay. So grew up in Devon, youngest of three. My mum was a psychologist, an educational psychologist. And my dad was involved in the arts funding, worked for Camelot, if you remember that, the National Lottery he did different things, but ended up doing that. Lovely childhood. Just look back on memories of sunshine in Devon and BMXing and being on the moors, and I loved it. I had I'm very blessed to have had such a loving family, amazing parents, amazing brother and sister. I was a teenager. My brother was at uni doing ancient history at Durham. And my dad got really poorly. He got really sick. I didn't know at the time. I just remember my mum saying that dad had to go for tests. I think I look back on it and remember him acting kind of different and a bit odd, saying strange things and being a bit embarrassing. I think that was the main thing that I remember. Dad was just a bit embarrassing and would say really random shit in front of people at dinners and stuff. And he developed something it turns out he had something called Pick's disease, which is the most severe form of Alzheimer's. I say that not absolutely knowing that, but it pretty much is, up there with one of the most severe forms. So highly aggressive, very, very quick how it comes on. So within a few years, he was really not in a good way, and then had to be put into a home. I think he was, and again, I always say this on every single pod I'm on or talk, I never know dates and ages. Do you know what I mean, Ron? I always go, I think he was 40, mid 40s, but I need to know that. But let's assume he was mid 40s. I was obviously GCSE level age going through secondary school. And I just remember mum, mum bringing me up at home, dad being in this home that I didn't really understand. I just knew it was a medical centre in a place called Launceston, and mum having to drive and see him all the time, having no idea of I think my diary's busy and I whinge if I'm having to do school runs and stuff. My mum was, oh my God, single parenting, the love of her life / husband was severely mentally sick and poorly, and she was having to drive hours to see him, and drive me around with school and stuff. So Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? When you get older, you look. I think when you do it yourself, you look back and um, you appreciate how much people have done for you. And it's only until you're older to do that. And then really sadly, he passed when I was, I think, again, like A levels, maybe just doing my A levels, final
So it's
year.
like 17, 18.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 17, 18. Um, and yeah, I remember mum sitting down. There's three major bits with dad being really ill and passing that I remember. One was when mum sat us down in the front room and basically said he was really, really poorly and not going to make it. Like, and I didn't really understand. I didn't really, you're 16, you're still a kid, but you're a young adult. But when I look back on it, I remember not really, it's not like we had Google then. It's not like I would go on ChatGPT and research pics and things. I didn't. I just mum said that he had this disease that, or condition, maybe disease is a kind of a horrible way to say it. But so I remember not really know, but I think I walked out of the house that day. I think I got on my mountain bike and just cried. I think I rode somewhere and just had a big cry. But again, it's all a blur on. Like I can't. There's a huge amount of trauma that went on there for those years, and there's a huge amount that I've got blackout from it. And then next thing I remember is the funeral, and I remember Dad was like, Dad was the biggest fan of dad rock. Like all we listened to was like Steely Dan and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I remember playing with Freebird, or we played Freebird at his funeral. It was stunning, like the organs in that track, if anyone knows it, by Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I remember that my sister sung Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon & Garfunkel, and that was like, wow, powerful and brutal, right? Seeing that, and she held it together, which is just amazing. Like those guys are so strong. And I was okay. When I say I was okay, what my definition of okay was not crying, which is a really weird thing to say, but I remember putting him in the ground, or people putting him in the ground, and me watching him in the coffin in the ground in Devon on the local churchyard. And then everyone walked away, and my mum's friend, I think I was just there kind of by myself, or just a few people there. And my mum's friend put her hand on my shoulder and just went, "Are you okay?" And I just lost it, the thought of your dad, I'm the youngest, right? I had an amazing relationship with him. I was obviously the naughtiest one, the black sheep, and that's kind of carried on through my adult life. And he was a bit naughty, so I think we had a lovely bond. And I just lost it, and that was that. So I went from not really knowing what I wanted to do. I mean, I did photography at school at A level. I didn't really know. I was a very creative person, but when that period when Dad was really sick, I think I looked for escapism, and I wanted to get away from it all. And a dear friend of mine called Orlando, who sadly isn't with us anymore, that's a whole nother story. He was joining the Royal Marines as an officer. So my grandfather was in the army, in the Second World War, an artillery spotter. But I had no affiliation with it. I was not the kid that went to cadets and rolled around in the mud. But I kind of went, fuck it. I wanted something really hard. I think I walked in, well, the way it works very well. But I think I walked into a careers office going in wanting to be a fast jet pilot, and then very quickly walked out having signed up for the Royal Marines. There was a bootneck who was in there. I remember Big Tash, old school Falklands looking guy, lovely guy actually, quite senior. I think he was a colour sergeant. And anyway, he was just cool, and we had a great time. And I ended up joining the Marines. And then, obviously, being a Devon lad, it was just on my doorstep. Dartmoor, I lived on Dartmoor. The village I grew up on, my whole life was the edge of. They call it the gateway to Dartmoor. So,
what's the village called, Joe?
Morton Hampstead. So down near Chagford. Yeah, like it is literally. You look out of my bedroom window and you see the moors. Nice. which I think really helped for me in basic training when you had like Scousers and lads from Leeds that were like freaking out when they saw a cow on the moor, and I was just like, oh, I knew the names of them, like they're my local farmers' cows. Yeah, I think it does make a massive difference, doesn't it? The environment you're used to and the hardness of it and that kind of stuff. But yeah, basic training, I remember being so nervous. I've always struggled with nerves, actually, and not less so in my adult life. But I remember that period in my life when I was younger, feeling physically sick quite
Mate,
often.
do you know what? I'm just going to gently interrupt you there, and I said I would question that. I think a lot of people do, but not everybody talks about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Or some people do, some people don't. Others don't want to recognise it, because I felt the same, mate. For the first few weeks in the induction block, yeah, it was like Sunday evening type pre-anticipation of Monday morning blues, when you know what I mean, where you haven't done your homework, but every single day for the first couple of weeks.
I remember Mum, like getting on the train. It's like so ridiculous. I got on, Mum dropped me to the very first, the infamous, famous train journey, right, that arrives at Lympstone. Like I got, I lived like 25 minutes from Exeter. So Mum drove me to Exeter. I got on the train knowing that it's like 2 stops to Lympstone. So there's a whole level of headfuckery for me. It's like signing, like basic training is like your next door neighbor. So it was kind of weird. But I remember being so nervous. And like you said, it's a bit timeless in a weird way. Time stops when you're in basic training, doesn't it? Think of that induction block and the shiny floor and the light and the hours, obviously, that you're just doing shit. There isn't really time, is there? It's just one non-stop blob of adrenaline. I think you're just constantly pumped from the cortisol because you're just like dreading it. But and talking about nerves, I struggled to eat quite often in basic training because I was nervous. And there were guys, you go to breakfast and you'd be sat there with guys like piles of food. And I was always like, I just couldn't do it. I'd eat. Of course I was eating, but I remember it hit my gut a bit. I struggled because of the nerves. But I just found my way with basic training. I got a massive rag. I was on section commander's warning on my very first exercise, which I never forget, by a guy called Tom Francis, who badged for the SBS. He put me on. He was obviously the officer, the troop boss, and I thought I was really smart because there's a first exercise called First Step, which any Royal Marines will know very well. Basically, like bootneck camping 101, and I thought. And I'm sure there is a recruit that does this on every exercise. I thought that if I didn't use my little hexi stove, that's the cooking stove, if I didn't light it and I didn't have to clean it, I thought that was very smart. I thought I could just eat the rations and not clean. Anyway, that didn't work out well, and I did not think about that one. So when they came around in the morning, they checked my stove, and it was clean as like a guardsman's freaking belt. And I got ragged and then put on section command this morning, and I was just like, oh my God, it just makes me laugh thinking about that. And then just, I started just to kind of do okay in it. I love the camaraderie with the guys from all walks of life, from up north to, like I said, the jocks, an Irish guy on there. Just amazing camaraderie. It just makes me laugh thinking about it, actually. And I'm still slightly in touch. I'm definitely due a reunion. I haven't seen any of them really since I've left the Corps before SF. But just funny moments. But you're just a walking tired entity, aren't you? You're just a little naive thing that just runs around.
Joe, can I ask you a quick question, mate? Obviously, the illness of your dad and the death happened at quite a pivotal moment. Were you able to block that out? Not that I'm suggesting that's maybe the most sustainable thing to do, but was that just blotched aside for you, mate, and all the way through training, or was there moments when you were able to sort of reflect or think?
I think I blocked it out. I think I still block it out. I think I blocked it out for a good 20 years. If I'm honest, I'm only actually starting to really, and I'm still at the tip of the iceberg. I haven't gone deep on it yet. And it's something that, a bit like, I need to know my dates. I keep saying I'm going to do, but life takes over. And I haven't, but no, I didn't think about it at all. I think it's my blessing and my curse. Like, what happened with Dad? It's given me so much drive.
Yeah.
And so much, like, there is nothing impossible. Like, whatever I kind of decide to put my name to, I tend to go for it and do okay. I'm not saying I can become an astronaut if I want to, but that's just the way I roll. And that's really driven, I think, from running away from that trauma from Dad. The downside of that is it can create, and had created, negative traits. Things like walking away from problems. Like, there's a flip side to that I've started through my adult life to pick up on, to watch, to check, as you do, Ron. You know, that some of the things that we should do, and just manage and be aware of and witness and observe them. So, yeah, it was. So, to answer your question in a simple way, no, not one part of me was thinking about it, and I found basic training. Easy is the wrong term, because Ron, you've been through it yourself. It's not easy, but I didn't find it physically hard. Mentally, I didn't find it hard. Found it a challenge, of course. But I kind of ended up, it was random. Not random. It sounds a silly way to explain it, but I ended up being a section commander and then a diamond. Which is a kind of Ron, how would you explain the diamond before I explain it wrong?
Mini promotion, isn't it?
Mini promotion, recruits. Yeah, exactly. And then I got the King's Badge,
which is the best recruit.
Which is the best recruit. And all just kind of organically. I didn't really want it. It wasn't like I was hunting for it. I wasn't like I said, I wasn't reading army books and Jane books and rolling around the mud as a nipper. I just ended up figuring out that if I did what they said and was quite good with people and tried to be a good team leader and be thoughtful, that worked. And that was really it. And then went straight to 40 Commando in Taunton, good old Sunshine 40. And I remember being dropped off again by my mum and my stepdad. And it was like a sunny day. That's like a whole nother bit, isn't it? Going to like your first commando unit and it being really cool. And then I picked, as the King's Badge, you can pick where you go. So I picked 40 because they were going straight to Iraq, which to some people sounds nuts, but I think to anyone cut from our cloth gets that. It's like, yeah, send me to war. And ended up on pre-deployment training for Iraq. And then obviously one of the first things they have to make sure you can do is shoot straight. That helps in our job. And I had like a rifle test with the unit, and I think I dropped, as in only missed like a couple of shots, whatever. I probably overread that. I probably missed like a mag, but it was something like that. It sounds good. And the sergeant major was like, right, I'm loading you straight on the snipers course because we need more snipers. So, which was really lucky to go straight on a snipers course straight out of training, which is pretty cool. You know, the Royal Marine snipers course, as you well know, is regarded as one of the best in the world. And there was a guy from your ugly mob. There was a SAS guy on it. And I just remember he was just cool, big South African chap. And he was just a bit cool. He was classic SAS, like massive lamb chop sideburns, big guy. And he would do like shadow drills with his pistol in the mirror. Like genuinely, he was probably taking the piss. But I remember like going, oh my God, that's fucking cool. No, Ron, genuinely he was. I remember him doing that. But he was called Chris. I can't remember his name. And it just resonated with me. That resonated with me. And then I remember seeing, I think, the SF thing kind of went in my head as well. I think I saw there was a poster somewhere on the Lympston camp of the old combat swimmer coming out the water with a DeMarco and M4, and I was like, yes, I want some of that shit. It was just cool. It was just very cool. And so that was ingrained in me then, that was my kind of next step. And also when I when I got the King's Badge, Comrade Thorpe, who was a colonel in the Special Forces, Special Boat Service, gave me my beret. He gave me the whole troop our green berets. And I remember him saying, what do you want to do? He's like, congratulations on the King's Badge. What do you want to do? And I looked up at him. He's a barrel of a Kenyan. Do you remember him, Comrade Thorpe?
I don't, mate, no.
Fine. Monstrous guy, Kenyan. Like as deep as he is wide, like barrel. Like amazing guy. Pretty much took like Bagram Airport single-handedly. Just like serious. mental. And he looked at me and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd quite like to have a go at what you've done. I'd quite like to have a go at Special Forces. And he said, Marine Bates, in a thick Kenyan accent, which I'm not going to do. He said, Marine Bates, there are some men that look at mountains and there are some men that climb them. He said, climb your mountain, like that. And I was like, wow, that's fucking no fear t-shirt shit right there. So went to Iraq, came back from Iraq, Basra, usual kind of things we did out there. And then
was that quite an interesting deployment, Joe? Or was it quite quiet?
It wasn't overly hostile. There weren't dust ups. It's Telic 4 at that point, so okay. It was just lower level stuff, but it was still super interesting, right? Yeah. I loved it. I loved the heat. I loved the training. Hated fitness tests on the runway. They're just absolutely minging, aren't they? What's the fitness test you do when you run a mile and a half and run back?
I want to say BPT, but not that's not right. Is it basic fitness? BFT.
BFT, guys. So there's a basic fitness test in the military where you run a mile and a half out as a group, and then it's as far as you can, mile and a half back. And like no matter how fit you are, and like every single person in the military just dreads them because everyone knows it's just hideous. And it's specifically on a hot runway where you're just running in a straight line. Anyway, so a bit of that. But I loved it. Just got on the protein, op massive, just train hard and worked. And yeah, it was my first deployment. I think I was 18, 18, something like that. Came back and then put my name down to go on SF selection. Went down to Poole, did the aptitude, found it really cool and interesting and like kind of enjoyed it. I was fit then. I was fit. And I think that I've always been pretty blessed that and maybe it's because my limbs, I don't know, just anatomically, biomechanically, whatever. I sounded quite smart then, right? Like how the my body composition, that I've always been able to carry quite big loads, but like open my legs up, which and I know helps on things like the hills and weight carrying and, stepping up steps like in the Brecons, you know what I mean? Like you can just, if you've got longer gait and you can use them, it can be quite useful. So that was it. Went through selection. I remember the same issues with my stomach on the hills phase, sat in in the cookhouse / galley, depending where you're from, like where you have your morning breakfast, where you get fed, and seeing all these paras like just eating like kings off Game of Thrones, dribbling and porridge. It was like horrible. And I remember just going, oh my God, I can't fucking eat. I'm just not hungry, knowing. And, but yeah, I mean, the selection hasn't changed since it started. And I hope it doesn't really change. I think every person goes through sees the same things, the strong falling quickly, the weak that you never expected getting stronger. All the classic stories that we know about selection and why it works, and the funny moments and So went through selection and kind of loved it. I think I really, really, in terms of escapism, Ron, think about the trees, getting in your bed at night and your cot bed and getting up when it's dark and trying to find your way to your century point, and it's just hilarious, isn't it? But just pure escapism.
Yeah.
Which I loved and did that and passed SF. I think I went on at 19 and badged at 20.
Which is really quite young, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Guys.
By general standards, not that it's right or wrong, but
yeah, exactly. It's semi-young, and I think I was old for my age because of Dad's death. I think I definitely was just not wise. I wasn't wise. I wasn't I wasn't Yoda by any means at all. I think I just was, I think I was just slightly stiller and probably still in shock, which made me seem a bit older. Maybe I'm just trying to figure out why I seemed older. And then went to X Squadron, special boat service at Poole, and just had the best 3-4 years ever there. I just best memories, good tours. Did 2 tours as a Afghan with X Squadron, and it was just cool, mate. You know the score. It was just, I was 20 years old, growing a beard, in Kandahar, great ops, amazing operators, and just the trips in between. It was the big boys club, right? It was the coolest boys club ever. That young, some of my friends hadn't even started uni, and I was hanging out at the back of Blackhawks and Chinooks and listening to AC/DC or Wham. No, I'm joking. And I just loved it, just absolutely loved it. And team was wicked, and then left, and then I decided, I think because of Dad's death, I wouldn't say fell into the military, but it was an unusual route for me to do. I definitely felt different to the rest of well, not to all of them, so I would say to the majority of them. I was just conscious that it wasn't my calling. I loved it, and it was, like I said, it was like playing for the best team in the world, right? It's like playing for Real Madrid or whatever. I hate to say City because that would annoy people, but you know what I mean. It was
it quite a quick decision to leave then, Joe? Was it? Or was that something quite premeditated?
I think it started to kind of vibrate around my head. I think after my first tour, I think it was when I did one rotation of counterterrorism tours, a continuation training, and then knowing that was the way that we rolled, and then thinking, wait a minute, I've got 20 years of these rotations to push. And I think I just kind of went, my logic was, I may as well go now. Is it right or is it wrong? Whatever, we make our own decisions. And I trust in that it was the right decision. I don't think there is a right and wrong decision. So I left, and I'd actually handed in my notice when I was on my last tour, as in before. So that last tour was kind of cool because, again, training hard, good ops, knowing you're leaving. I never forget, mate. This is quite funny. My mum's always been very sensible, which I need to learn 1,000 times % to be more like her. Very astute, very sensible. And I remember when I was joining the Marines, she was so nervous. And when I was on op, she never slept. And I remember speaking to her on, since leaving, and she just, she found it horrendous when I was out there at the Warry. And I never forget when I phoned her up. I think it was a Sunday in Poole, where I was based in the SBS. And I said, Mum, I'm probably going to leave. And she was like, darling, are you sure that's a good decision? And I was like, fucking hell. Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. You want me to hang out with grenades and Taliban insurgents? But her point was, rightly so, it's what are you going to do next? And I didn't know. And I had no idea. I knew that guys went on the circuit and did bodyguarding and earned good money. I had this calling almost to go up to London. A lot of my friends were living in London. They were traders, and I saw what I thought was a cool lifestyle of champagne and Lamborghinis and going out and getting upside down. And so I left and did that. I went and rented a house with some friends in Battersea and started taking exams to become a trader. There was a gap in between that where I bodyguarded an ultra high net worth, an American chap, just doing some super yacht security. He made a lot of his money on Wall Street, and I obviously thought I wanted that kind of lifestyle. So I took my exams and knocked on the door of a load of the banks, Goldman's, Credit Suisse. They all told me to fuck off. But Citibank, amazingly, were, and maybe stupidly, no, I hope not, said, right, if you can come in, if you can pass the grad scheme, you're in. So that was it. Next gauntlet, next test, next selection. And worked my ass off and ended up passing that. And this is quite an important bit to note of my kind of story. I was sat there I never forget it. And it was like, I remember it being warm. And I was studying for like the banking exams, and I was going into Canary Wharf and for, like to be taught the stuff. And I remember going home and studying. And a dear friend that owned a big security company phoned me up, and his business partner, my best friend that I joined the Marines with, that guy called Orlando, grew up together in Devon, joined the Marines the same day. He was the officer, I was a grunt. My friend Peachy said, have you spoke to Orlando? He's been in the plane crash. And I was like, what do you mean? I spoke to him this morning. I was training that morning in Battersea in like a gym. And me and him were like WhatsApping back and forward, like thick as thieves, right? Basically brothers. He had like Christmas with us. And I was so confused. He said, mate, you need to get in a car and get your ass down now to Dorset. So we jumped in the car, drove down at like Mach 10. And it turns out he'd been in a tiger moth with a friend of ours who he worked with, and they'd done a loop and got into a spin and then crashed from a loop-the-loop and just spanked in. And I remember arriving at the hospital, and Orlando's mum turned up, and it was just hell, mate. It was absolutely hell. And we basically had to switch him off there and then. Yeah, really, really brutal point, that from, losing dad to then losing him. And yeah, I remember, do you know what this, this is really weird, but I think it's one thing this is one thing that resonated with me through that experience is when someone dies, again, I talked about how time stopped in basic training, but when you're in that shock, I remember me and Peachy, David Peach, we just sat in his house, and there was like, do you remember the old Apple TV screensavers with the animals? I remember it just like rotating, just drinking tea, and just being like in there for hours, just not really doing anything. And I remember like, time just stops, doesn't it? There's just like, it stops, and you're just such a weird feeling where you're so numb, and everyone is so numb, and you can't really connect because everyone's having their own trauma, and it's just this weird experience. And I remember bouts of emotion hitting me, like being numb, and then walking outside and just bawling and having to like go into a corner in his driveway and just crying my eyes out, and then coming back in, and then that just going on and on and on, and mental time. And yeah, it was really, really sad. He was very, very, very talented, super young, but one of those things that happen. So big thoughts to him and Dad actually right now. So ended up becoming a banker. I say banker, I was by no means a banker. God, I checked myself there right away. Ended up becoming a sales trader, and the guys are amazing. They were so cool. They supported me, the team around me, the bosses, everything. They were wicked. But I wanted to love it. I was given this amazing opportunity that people don't die for, but it's to work in tier 1 banks. It's a good job. You get paid very well, but I just hated it. It was just the complete opposite of me, and I think the stress that caused was mind blowing. When you try and make a human or an animal do something it really, really doesn't do from like or doesn't want to do from like a spiritual level, whether that's locking up a wild animal, I suppose, or forcing someone to do, or someone hiding secrets in their life and living a different life. I don't know, but I was just super, super unhappy because I knew I would never get it. And I knew no matter how much time I put into trying to get it, it was not something I could do. And I just didn't see the matrix. I'd hear guys walking in on a Monday morning talking about stocks and bonds and shit that was going on with companies. And I remember like trying to read like the FT and company information, and as in like internal sales information about what's going on in the markets. And it just like, no matter how much I read it, right, slowly, like 5-year-old level of slowness, trying to get this in my head, it just would not go in. It just would not sit in there. It was mental. And then because of that, I think knowing that I was unhappy, and it just wasn't right. I was just going out more. I was drinking more. I was taking drugs, and just burning myself out. Training still hard, not looking after myself. You know, the hours are crazy doing those banks, but just a bit soulless. And until I was at a wedding, and my brother came up to me. And this is one of those amazing moments in your life where it's a bit sliding doors, where it's someone that checks you, and like it can change you. It can change your life. Just the right moment, the right thing said, the right person saying it. And he looked at me and he was like, "Mate, you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" And I wasn't. I was like exhausted spiritually, right? And he said, "I've just been like, I don't know." He was like, "You just seem like you've lost your spark. Like you're just not you anymore. You just lost your spark." And I was like, shit. And then I just opened up, and he knew I wasn't that happy, and sleep was getting affected. And that was it. I think I phoned up my boss at the bank on a Sunday and told him that I couldn't do it anymore and I was leaving. And a huge amount of stress just with that. They'd kind of bent the rules slightly. They believed in me to get me in as this XSF guy. Ron, you know, me and you've talked about this a lot before. There's the preconceptions of what guys like me and you can do is also quite big in this world. People assume because of what we've done in our lives, you know, special forces, that you have to constantly be hard as nails, tough, articulate, you know, you can't ever show weakness. And that was a big thing for me to almost break cover and be like, I'm not fucking strong here. Like, I can't do this. And he took it so amazingly and was so supportive. And I left and just felt amazing, mate. The minute I left, I felt great. I felt, didn't know what next.
Yeah.
Didn't know what next, but I felt great. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much there, mate. But what really strikes me is, because there's, like you say, we've talked about these sorts of things quite a bit between ourselves, is that we can never get enough of what we don't need. That's what was really struck me. Yeah, you didn't need that lifestyle or that bank at that time. Hence the resistance that you were showing to it. I guess it's part of it, as well as all the other things that you were carrying from some of the things you mentioned and other things you probably haven't in between. But I think what's incredible about your story, Joe, is the way that you've, let's not say turn it around, because there's no end point with this. It's not a tick box exercise or destination type thing, but the way that you've been able to, I mean, you'll probably touch on this now, but use your experiences and your struggles to help other people, or at least create platforms for other people to lean into those.
That's really kind. I think I think one thing that, and I've talked about this quite a lot recently in social, and just even when I'm talking to groups or individuals, that I think to be truly, truly authentic and honest is the most important thing we can do in life. Like, be brutally honest. And if people don't like that honesty, I'm not saying outlandish views. Fine, you can, but you're going to upset some people, right? That's not my point. I mean, honest to yourself about why you're doing something, and don't try and behave in the way that you assume other people want you to. The reason I say that is, I left the bank, I went into branding, I lived all around the world in Hong Kong and all these things, and I loved it. Living in Hong Kong. I mean, I could go on for hours about that period of my life, but I want to like brush over that Hong Kong was wicked, crazy, and then worked a lot in Sydney doing branding exercises with a really cool branding agency and a chap who taught me everything in that space called John Brash. Big up to John. And decided I always, working with startups and lots of different brands, right? Lots of different stuff, brand strategy, how they communicate, what they look like, all that kind of stuff. And I went back to my creative roots, basically, Ron. I loved photography. Like, still, we talk about for your listeners, but we talk about flow state quite a lot in like performance and what that looks like. And it doesn't just mean, people always assume it's like Delta or SEAL Team 6, like going through room clearances with their heart rate, like just boom, 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 boom. Like flow state is just, again, maybe this is interesting. I keep talking about time stopping, don't I? But flow state for me is literally when time stops. And there are certain things with photography that do that. Things like image searching. Like if I go on Getty or Shutterstock or Unsplash and I go down rabbit holes of looking at imagery, this is really weird, but there's a point to this story. Like I can just be hours and hours and hours like finding and looking at different imagery. My body, it reacts so well to creative, to building stuff and design. Like it's the complete polar opposite of trying to read about financial numbers and markets. That's my point. So I went in, found this thing called branding and just fell in love with it and just felt like I had found what I wanted to do. I loved it. It's psychology, it's human interaction, it's relationships, it's understanding CEOs and groups and businesses, and then taking in what they do and then helping them articulate what their vision is. And I just absolutely loved it. I'm really blessed I found it. Anyway, so did that for a good few years and always wanted to launch my own thing and do my own thing and apply that knowledge to it. So that was where I founded Halen, and Halen's Old English for Hero. And we started off really as a kind of, I'm not going to rebrand this or say it in a different way. We were kind of a therapy platform. I looked at this was just during COVID, at the start of COVID, I started to build it, and we launched during COVID. Remember that funny thing, COVID? Whatever. I think we launched during that. And yeah, exactly. It was an app. And I saw the rise of Peloton and even the rise of TikTok and the video interface and how people just started to get used to more video content, and the traditional therapy platforms were very like findatherapist.com and a bit shitty and a bit pixelated. And I thought, wait a minute, we can just uplift this. We can kind of Peloton a therapy platform of it. So that was it. Launched it. It was amazing. Went really well. And then over the course of five years, I've just constantly pivoted it. Went from that to bringing on board, as you well know, ex-military. So almost utilizing the power of veteran stories to open up demographics that wouldn't traditionally want to speak to people under the brand of whether that's coaching, or therapy or counseling, that kind of stuff, but really using the military as a bit of a Trojan horse. Guys like the guys that that we had on to get people to speak, and that was cool. That didn't quite hit the mark. I think the app market definitely was and still is highly saturated. Like it's bloody hard. Yeah, easy to scale. Like everyone immediately thinks about build a tech company and it can scale quickly, but it's so competitive. So therefore user acquisition, trying to bring on board new customers is really hard. Like people download an app, delete them within seconds, and that's even if you can get them to learn them. So I missed, I'm a gut instinct guy, I think, again, that makes sense the way I can't eat when I'm nervous, right? But I think I am. And it just didn't quite feel right. like trying to push this thing, and it just felt a bit too hard working with consultants that were telling me how to figure out the matrix with algorithms and how we can acquire more customers. But, well, if they were telling me that, they would be billionaires. It's that kind of thing. Like a lot of that in building these in companies when you're using agencies and things. Anyway, I digress. But I trusted my gut, and then naturally started to want to do more in person with people. Lockdown lifted, a few years went forward, and people wanted to do more experiential stuff. We saw that holiday bookings went through the roof. People wanted to go and do more wellness activities, so we started running more retreats and some corporate work and doing things like that. Loved it, like absolutely loved it. And we're in the middle of a kind of pivot at the moment to do something. And I would love to come back on actually when we start to talk about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So so vague, right? That's so vague, but let's keep it vague. It's business, and it can be really, really tricky. And anyone that's listening to this that's a entrepreneur or runs a team, entrepreneur sometimes can sound a bit wanky, but let's just say anyone that is involved in earning money, it's not simple. It really isn't simple. And it's about, I was outside, and back to the point about being honest and authentic. I was outside having a cigarette about, I don't know, a year ago with my beautiful fiance's cousin, half brother, family, thick as thieves. And he's doing amazingly now, but he's at multiple businesses, and this one's taking off. It's going like gangbusters now, right? But he's been on the roller coaster with different companies and different ideas and things for free. And again, back to my brother's comment that resonated with me at that exact point. I stood outside with him. Maybe it was my mindset at that time. I felt a bit maybe lost with what was going on with the company, and he simply said, he's like, "You will not fail if you do not stop." He's like, "You will not fail. You will do it. Just do not give up." And it's like obviously we've heard that before, but it's all about the moment in which that is said to you, for that to imprint in your brain, and who's saying it to you. And it just really imprinted on me. So we've got really exciting stuff ahead of us, which I'd love to talk about, but I can't. I'm not going to stop talking, Jay. Stop talking. But I'm really excited.
I think, cheers for that, mate. You're welcome to come back on and talk about that when you can. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But I think, what comes to me there, mate, is exactly. But also, what we're making failure mean, and again, we have talked about this. What does it mean? Is it a failure, or is it just a lesson to help us move forward? It doesn't mean it's always going to be easy or more palatable, but we can learn to choose how we see that. Taking those lessons, experiences forward. Yeah, you've mentioned that yourself. Trying to crack the algorithm isn't something that was resonating with you, and so you've pivoted and used that experience to continue to try and bring a service to people that will help them.
Well, and one thing that I really want to say on this chat, which me and you've never talked about, is something that you live by, and I think you definitely seeded some of this thinking. I'm not going to give it all to you, by the way. I'm not going to say you did this to me, but you definitely seeded it, which was things like when we started hanging out and working together back in the day, and you would talk about how important your kids were and turning up for them and being a good dad and just being a good person, right? Just being a good person is so important. And I think I've done a lot of work on myself. I've been in this space now of helping others for 5 years, 6 years. And I think quite a lot of that, I haven't necessarily been true to that word. I've helped people on face value, but inside me, have I been balanced? Have I been grounded? Have I been truly doing it for the right reasons? No, absolutely not. Have I treated people right? No, absolutely not. And I think that I've really, over the course of the last 6 months, almost stripped myself right back from working with an amazing guy who's a teacher in LA, who I've been working with, an amazing man. and kind of readdressed everything about the way I've acted in the past, owned up to it, been honest with myself, and what I want to do now, like how I want to act now and how I want to treat others, and things like, Ron, you know this, but I've stopped drinking, and how much of an effect that's had on me. Like, I think that it's never, ever, in fact, I posted something today by Jay Alderson. I saw he wrote it, and it was just, I thought it was bang on for my life. It's like, the first 40 years of life are lessons and mistakes, right? You know what I mean? Mistakes isn't the right word. Lessons, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next 40 years is basically learning from them and putting them in place. Like, you can't, like, 20s and 30s, you should fuck up. That's what you should be doing. You should be doing it, right? But I've just had the most beautiful journey over the last 6 months of slight tweaks, hard conversations, but slight tweaks in the way I roll and the way I act and what I want to do. And the effects have been massive, to the point where, my family have noticed it, more than noticed it. Like, they're egging it on now, put it this way. And I suppose my point with this stuff is, you can't force change. You can't suddenly go, I just need to be a better person. I do believe as I get older, I'm becoming more spiritual, not in a religious sense, but in like a universe sense, right? Fate, things like that. I am starting to believe more in fate and things. My point is, you can't suddenly read a self-help book and be sat on the fence whether you want to change, and then just change and it will work out. I think there has to be a catalyst in a moment, and it will come. It will come at some point, but you can't force it, and you don't know when it's going to come. But when it does, and you do innately 100% want to change your life, it's the most beautifully powerful experience that I want everyone to experience if they can at some point in their life. And I feel like that's what's happened to me over the last kind of 6 months. It's really interesting. Did I sound really, really hippie then?
a little bit, but you're talking to a hippie as well, so it doesn't really matter, mate. I love it, and for me, as I say in my coaching sessions, it doesn't have to make sense to me. If it makes sense to you, that's cool, and that's what this is, an extension of those conversations, mate. Something somebody really challenged me on recently, which has really got my mind whirring, Joe, and you're probably able to relate to this a little bit, is something along the lines of, I'm going to slightly misquote, so I'm going to have to put this in the notes, but along the lines of, something along about truly being able to serve others until we've healed or learnt to see the wounds within ourselves. So in my case, my thing at the moment is creating space for impact and change. Well, there's probably two sides to that. I'm creating that need for myself, but I see it in others. And I think, which is a really interesting gut kick challenge that's something to gently rest my attention on over the next couple of days, weeks, and months.
I love it. And I think one of the most powerful things people can do in the right process, by the way, this isn't just sit there now and write them down and then go, oh my God, is be very, very aware of what your negative traits are. And there's a process on how to deal with that, if that makes sense, and how to check them and be aware of them. But I'm talking like hardcore self-assessment of your own negative traits, right? Whether it's jealousy, envy, different things like that. And I think we all have them within us, and they creep back in very, very, very quickly. I did it the other day, by the way. So we're on a group WhatsApp, and someone said something, and I was just a bit like cringe. And I messaged Jodie and said, "Oh God, can I just stop?" Like, and she simply she just wrote back, she put, "Be kind. You're supposed to be kind." And I was just like, "Wow, fair point." Like you know what I mean? Like, It's so easy, human instinct, for stuff to creep back in. That's my point.
Yeah, but I think there's a really good point there, mate, and that is we are human, and that we continually learn these lessons, and mine, I get the impression, is similar to yours, that we're constantly trying to prove ourselves through the things we do. So if we reach that standard, yeah, great, we can feel good about ourselves, but it's never quite good enough. On to the next thing, and we have talked about that as well. Joe, I noticed on social you're starting to do a lot more plodding around Surrey in Lycra. Can you talk us a bit about
Sussex, not Surrey.
Sorry, buddy.
I go to that horrible hellhole. No, I'm joking.
I've been there with you before, though.
We're on the borders. We're on the borders. Yeah.
What's going on with you and your Lycra, mate?
So my Lycra. I'm actually lying here right now, or sat here talking to you in Lycra. So I'm running the marathon for iFit, a company which is really cool, and they just ran this really wicked competition. I think we've got about 8 to 10 runners from America that have never ran a marathon before, London, and it was a competition, and they had to send in videos of why they want to run it, and they've all got amazing stories. So I'm coaching them through that, and then I'm going to run it with them. People are going to run their own times. There was a point when I'm like, I'm going to go sub 3. Me and you've discussed this. I'm going to and like push people out of the way and trying to like dip for the freaking finishing line. But I thought, what a douchebag! I am going to plod it with one of the team that want me to plot it with them and just enjoy it. I ran it last year. It was amazing. It's a very, very special day where you see humanity and kids, and it's wicked. It's a really, really special day, the marathon. Awesome. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But I need to run a bit more, if I'm honest. I'm not quite upping the distances, but I'm a big fan of being highly underprepared and just
grizzing it out.
Just a little bit. I quite like the randomness of being slightly underprepared.
Love it, mate. Love it, Joe. We'll start to wrap it up very shortly, mate. But I'm curious to know if there's one final message that you would leave any listeners if you were to give one piece of wisdom or insight for yourself or for other people, or the biggest life lesson you've had. What might that be?
It would be, I suppose, a couple of things. One would be change will come. You can't force it. That's my point. Like, there will be a moment and it will be profound when it comes. And I'm excited for you when it does. That sounds very, very vague, but I totally, totally believe it. It's a long life we have. We have many, many years. No matter how old you are in front of us, it's a long, long, beautiful life we can live. And I think we grow up in a society where you want things now. And that's not the case. That's not true. That's not life. I think just know that it will come. And when it does come, it's even more special because you haven't planned it. So that's one thing that I truly believe in. And just be kind. Just be kind. I'm gonna say what Jode said to me. Just be kind. Just be nice. Just be, like you said, Aaron, like we have shit days. You can be a bit sometimes and lose your temper every now and again. We're human, but like, just try and be kind. If everyone's nice to each other, like being a shitbag isn't cool. Being a kind looking shitbag is fucking quite cool. So just be kind. Just be a really beautifully kind person. Open doors for people. You just never know who you're letting through that door in front of you and how that person might help your life. Not in a capitalistic, commercial sense, just in a growth, human energy sense. So just be kind.
Love it, mate. Love it. Joe, where might people be able to find you if they're interested in reaching out or finding out a bit more about
see me
what you've got going on?
About mile 16, having cramp on the London streets in April. No, I'm joking. They can find me on my Instagram, as you know, which is Joseph Edward Bates. Joseph Edward Bates. It's a long one, that, right? I need to change mine. What's yours, Ron? Is yours like Ron88 or something?
No, Hill Aaron 79.
There you go.
I have no idea why.
Bang. You never quite think about it, especially when you set them up in the olden days. It's like when you had Hotmails like Joe Big Balls and like, do you know what I mean? Like the old Hotmail things. Yeah, find me on that. And mate, it's been wicked talking to you. I've actually really, obviously really enjoyed it, and it's been nice.
Love it, mate. Love it. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time to speak to us today, mate. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come back on the next time. Keep doing what you're doing, bud. Keep shining the light. Keep being kind to yourself so you can be kind to others. And yeah, looking forward to speaking to you soon, pal.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks, mate. Bye.